Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. You are listening to episode number 185. I'm Victoria Gallagher, Law of Attraction hypnotist and #1 bestselling author of Practical Law of Attraction. Align yourself with the manifesting conditions and successfully attract your desires. I'm also the founder of HipTalk.com and HypnoCloud apps, which gives you access to over 500 hypnosis recordings right in the palm of your hand. So be sure to download that app from the app stores today. And today I want to welcome back a former guest, Christy Whitman. Christy Whitman is a New York Times bestselling author and transformational leader. She has appeared on the Today Show, the Morning Show, TEDx, the Hallmark Channel, and her work has been featured in numerous publications and magazines. Christy teaches the law of attraction, energy mastery, and personal development classes, meditations, and private sessions to help clients feel more aligned with the more aligned with the divine design. That's a little bit of a tongue twister there. Of well-being and abundance and success. And she currently lives in sunny Arizona with her husband and 2 boys. And you can meet her at ChristyWhitman.com. And she can also be found on Facebook. And she's written many books, to date 7. I'm familiar with a few of them. The Desire Factors, her most recent book. We also had her on the show talking about quantum success. And another book before that was The Art of Having It All and Taming Your Alpha Bitch. So I'm curious about the other books, but we're going to go into some of the desire factor, manifesting the things that you truly want out of life. So welcome back to the show, Christy.
Thank you so much, Victoria. That is a tongue twister, isn't it? Divinely designed.
Yes. It definitely is. It definitely is. Well, we're definitely in alignment on this whole law of attraction thing and aligning. And but I am really, really curious to dive in on your take and really what prompted you to write this book. I mean, just prior to our turning on the recording here today, we chatted a little bit about how this book came about. You got into you started channeling, and a lot of this book, the Desire Factor, has been channeled. So I just to give our audience a little bit of background, tell us a little bit about your experiences getting involved with channeling, and we'll just kind of dive in and go from there.
Okay, sounds good. So I'd say my conscious spiritual journey began about 25 years ago when I was seeking and I finally found meditation. And when I found meditation, my meditation teacher told me that you create your own reality. And that for me was a moment I will never forget, where I felt almost like this expansion happened. And of course, my mind wanted to know, well, how? Right. And so that was my next question when she said, you create your own reality. And I had that moment of like, whoa, wow, what is that? And allowed myself to be in that space. But then how? And she said, well, you're by your mind, by your thoughts. You're either repelling things from you or attracting things to you based on the way you think. And this is, again, one of those just like moment after moment, like, because I'm like, the way I think, I was in the place where I thought I was my thoughts. The thoughts that would tell me that I'm too short, or my butt's too big, or that I'm not good enough for that, or I can't have that particular thing, or good guys are only for, good girls, or, whatever it might have been. Right. Those are not true. Like all of that I'm aware, that I sometimes hear myself think, right? But at the same time, it was a place of, wait a minute, I can pay attention to those thoughts and I could actually stop them and shift them. I mean, it's liberating. Those are the moments of literally like almost like shackles coming off in that moment of just pure freedom. And what's interestingly enough, is 25 years ago, my meditation teacher was also a channeler. And in the first couple of meetings, when I met her, she said to me, "Oh, you're a channel. You're a channeler." And I'm like, "I don't know what you mean." Like, okay. I mean, I know, like, I don't even know what questions to ask about this. So I'm like, oh, okay. And it wasn't until my first book came through me. And that was one of the ones, my first book was actually Perfect Pictures. And it came out about 20 years ago. And it talks about how I was in this place of understanding that there's a lack mentality, right? And then there's an abundant mentality. And that's where I was in my own pursuit of changing this environment of lack, which never feels good, to this environment of abundance, which always feels good, right? And while I was in that growth place, and I was bringing in deliberately the feeling of passion and purpose in my career, because I didn't have that in my career, I figure, okay, if I'm lacking that, I can bring that in through energy as far as what I knew. And that's at that time, that's when I had my first book channeled through me. So 1:05 in the morning, I was woken up. The voice was outside of my head, but inside my head at the same time. I can't explain it any other better way. It wasn't me. So I got up and put pen to paper and just started describing. And that was my first kind of leaning into what is considered channeling, because, and then I saw Abraham Hicks do it, on many different occasions, but I also went through a lot of depth meditation practices from two different channeled beings, Oren and Daben, that are channeled by Sanaya Roman and Dwayne Packer, again, 25 years ago. So my earliest teachers were channels. So for me, when I'm coming into this very, very different new world, it also included channeling, right? So it was just something I leaned into. And as I was progressing as a coach and working with more people and healing my own imprints and allowing in more light and, showing up and doing the things that were assigned to me. And, as I was leading in throughout these 15 or so years, what happened to me was that all of a sudden, one day on a phone call, it wasn't even around Zoom. We used to have like instant teleseminar back then, when I would get on a call and there would be maybe 50 other people on a call. And I was checking out, like I called on one person to kind of do a scan on them energetically. And again, on the phone. And all of a sudden my hands went up like this and I could see the person. And it was like I was around their neck. Oh, and as soon as my hands were, I know. And as soon as my hands went up, she said, now I was in Montreal, Canada at the time, and she was in Washington, right, on the phone. And she says to me, "Did you just put your hands around my neck?" And I said, "You could feel that?" She's like, "Yeah. And my neck has been bothering me today." She didn't tell me her neck was bothering her. And my hands all of a sudden felt like I picked up a huge ball of fire. It was just like, and I couldn't put my hands down. And then all of a sudden it just stopped. And she was like, "Oh my God, my neck feels better." Right. And I was like, I don't know what that was, but that was cool. And then it kept happening more and more. I kept leaning into it. I wasn't afraid of it. It felt good. And then I was starting to hear. So again, same class, different person. All of a sudden I'm hearing very crystal clear, not my mind, saying, "Tell her she needs to go get her hips checked." Like, how can I say that to a person? I go, "All right, Barbara, I'm in Montreal. She's in, I think, Oregon at this point. Seattle, Oregon. I can't remember. But she said to me, "Why would I go and get my hips checked?" I go, "Please don't kill the messenger. They're telling me to have you go." And I'm like, I'm not going to not say anything to you, because I have to, it's so clear it's for you. And they keep repeating it. So I didn't even know who they were, right? It was just like, I would call them they. It wasn't like he said or she said, it was a they. And intuitively just knew that. And so then she went the next day to go to her doctor, and she had cancer in her hips.
Oh my goodness.
She had no pain. They detected so quickly and fast that they were able to eradicate it immediately. So
you may have saved her life.
Right? I mean, so there are moments where I've leaned in like that, and thank God I did. And so I kept leaning in and leaning in. And then I got one day, I had to pull over on the freeway because I was having this vision, and I was not on drugs. I was like, I'm having this vision, you know? So I had to pull over, and it was literally like this what I know to be true is like this council of light, but this like high level of energy in like a ring. And they showed me to create a sacred circle of light program. I'm like, I don't know. And I kept getting information every week. Someone will show up. You just, when they show up, you work healings on them, you scan their energy. I'm like, okay, I could do that. You tell me what to do. Right now I'm in developing a relationship with this thing, this voice, this beingness. And while we were on one of the Sacred Circle of Light calls, all of a sudden the last woman was going for the day, and the council literally just came through. And it was like, in my memory of this, I felt like I went over the chair. Like I felt like my physical body and everything went over the chair, and that they were, you know, speaking, and I could hear them. And then they left, and I came back in, and I'm like, oh my God, that's never happened before. I'm crying. The ladies are crying. And it was just, and they've come through ever since.
Wow.
So, yeah. And
that is a crazy, crazy story. But you know what? It's not so crazy, because I think, don't you think that, I mean, we all basically have the ability to do that.
for sure.
So I took a seminar back, 20 some odd years ago, and we did a thing called casework, where we would tune in to this person. They would just give us they would literally just give us where they lived and their name, I think. And so we would tune in to that person, and then we would literally come up with like what they looked like, how old they were, what ailments they had. And then we would do like some sort of like energy, it was all like using the imagination and tapping in. But I mean, like 85% of the class had it spot on. Like how did you know that? Like we never met before this seminar. Like, how did you even know that? So it's really cool that, but with you, I mean, they found you.
I think, well, it's definitely a mutual admiration society between them and me. And they, because I've asked like many times, like, why me? And it's like, cause you're open, you just keep leaning in. And they just told me that the first 3 years, which we just, September 17th, which happens to be my son's birthday, they came through on that day when they came through for the first time. So they just reached their 3-year birthday together. Right. And it's like, that was integration time. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what's, okay. It's like, all right, well, just let me know what I need to bring for the journey. Cause I mean, I'm leaning in because it keeps just getting better and better. So why would I question it or fear it? So
I love it.
It's interesting, but what interestingly enough, this book, The Desire Factor, it was something that had percolated a couple of years before I even started channeling. And then they came through and they're like, pick up the book. Because in all of my books, in every situation that whenever I've published a book, it's always been a channeled thing. And there was always a momentum and always a flow that nothing ever said to stop. Right. And so I just kept the information would come through, like, for example, The Art of Having It All. Right. I was literally at a media summit pitching Taming Your Alpha Bitch. And I walked up to this woman and I said, what do all New York women want? Because she was a freelancer for New York Magazine. And she goes, what? And I go, they want it all. And she was like, women can't have it all. They need to get real. They're overworked and overwhelmed. They think that they're stretching themselves. And I was like, whoa. She was so negative. And she was, nobody gets what they want. And it was just, I was like, so I said to her, I go, do you know any, or she said to me, actually, she goes, do you know anybody who has it all? And I go, yeah, I do. And a lot of my clients do. And she goes, well, here. And she gave me my information back, because she goes, I don't be needing this. And she goes, because women can't have it all. And I looked at her and I go, therein lies the problem.
As you wish.
So I couldn't even concentrate. My assistant was with me there, and she's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I need to go like be by myself. I went in my room, had this room because we were there for a couple of days, and pen to paper. I just literally was for the next 2 weeks channeling that book. You know, it's like it comes in sections and it comes in flow, and then it will stop, or that it will pick up like the Desire Factor did. So the Desire Factor was different because it came in different stages. But what I love about it, what I'm really proud about it is that for 25 years, I've been manifesting deliberately, right? I've been doing that by changing my thoughts and focusing on what I want and drawing him or it to me, or, you know, whatever it is, for 25 years. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, and sometimes there's more frustration than it, you know, it's a journey. And the council put it all in literally exact steps. It's like if you had all the puzzle pieces and you're still trying to figure out the puzzle, and you're like, I think that works, right? To have the council literally go, here are the 7 pieces, and this is the order in which they go in, it's so much easier and so much more elegant, and life is just so much more even flowing than it was before. And I had it pretty good before.
Yes.
Right?
Well, we're going to have to dive into what those 7 steps are, because I love giving our audience like usable information on like how they can actually apply this. So that'll be amazing. But I just want to say, I mean, that woman, that told you, that you can't have it all. I mean, it's really sad, but it made me think actually when she told you that, and it had to have been such a profound experience, because it's like, how can somebody be so stuck in their limiting thinking that like they're just fighting for that to be true? I mean, they
arguing,
not only,
they're arguing for their limitations. Go ahead.
I mean, because sometimes I mean, you hear something like you can have it all, and for some people, their knee-jerk reaction is like, yeah, are you sure that's really true? Or it might invoke some curiosity. But I wonder if like that person was like an angel, in a way, sometimes like an angel as a catalyst for you
Totally.
to write that book.
Absolutely. Because she even recommended a book for me to read. And I'm not going to mention it because I do not recommend this book. I remember we were driving I'll never forget, we were driving from Montreal to Arizona to go for the winter. And my kids are in the back seat. My husband's driving, and I'm reading this book, and I'm like, I'm like getting agitated and frustrated. And he goes, why are you continuing to read this book? And I'm like, I want to throw it out the window, because it was all about limitations and how we have to make choices. And I'm like, are we back into the 30s and 40s that women are supposed to just be home and that's what they're supposed to do? Right. Or that, hey, you don't have to do that, but either pick the career and don't have a love life. And I was like, that's the choices we have. Why can't we have what we love in all aspects of our lives? We're creators. I mean, no one told me that I could ever be literally a stay-at-home mom while I built and maintain a multi-million-dollar coaching business. I didn't have the model for that, but I felt like, well, that's my having it all. If I just had my kids and I didn't have anything for myself that I felt like I was on purpose and passionate about, I would feel that there's something missing, because my life is so complete by having that. But by having the career I have, the light service, I mean, you even call it a career now. It's like, because what I do with the council, but to have that, I mean, and to not have them would be, it's like a world where they're not in it just doesn't make sense to me. Right. I did both at the same time, while one of them was actually in the hospital for a month having open heart surgery.
Jeez.
And he's now 11 years old, and he's the star of his soccer team. I mean, everything I even applied to that. I applied to the divorce I went through. I applied it to when my sister committed suicide. It doesn't mean because you know these things that life is going to be rainbows and lollipops and that there's never going to be any type of contrast. But when you move through the contrast, then it is so much easier to do that because you know that you control your consciousness.
Absolutely. I love it. And, you really do. I mean, the way that you are talking about this, I mean, it's very clear that you're aligned, that you have it all. And yeah, it is absolutely a fact that even the most proficiently skilled manifestors are going to hit roadblocks. They're going to hit those, we haven't manifested like our entire life, we're still living, we're still on the earth, we're still human beings, and we're still having this human experience. So tell us though about some of those obstacles that do get in people's way, because, so many of our listeners, they want to have it all. They want to manifest all their desires. They want to have the family, the business, the body, all of the things, and be able to travel and be able to, do all those things. So what would you say are some of the 5 obstacles that are standing in somebody's way of being able to manifest their desires?
Let's break them down into like 3, because that we'll really be able to like really dig into the 3 of them. So, and what you're saying is absolutely so spot on and true, is that when we have a desire that literally comes through us and we feel excited by it, there's 3 things that you can even do with it. And so that's, you can flow into that desire, you can embrace it, you can open arm it, and say, I'm in whatever I need to do to be a continuous vibrational match with it. I'm all in, right? Or you can just feel the idea and go, okay, that's nice. And then the energy will release because you're not connecting with it or the desire, or you talk yourself out of it. And so the 3 obstacles really are all in our own heads. The first obstacle is ourselves literally saying to ourselves, "Well, I can't do that. Who am I to do that? Oh, I'm too old to that. I'm too out of shape to do that. Oh, nobody in my family's ever done that." All the imprinted lies, really, and the limiting thoughts or the beliefs or the decision points that we made at a time when we didn't have awareness and consciousness on that we could create our own reality, and that thoughts do matter, right? It's all of that, and being able to recognize when it's limiting us and shift it. But most people don't. They let that thought, having your own business, that's really going to take up way too much time. Oh, okay. I won't do it then. Right. It's like we become our own obstacle. Or it could be something like we tell ourselves, well, you're really too old. Right? Until someone tells you, wait, did you know that Julia Child started her business in her 50s? And then, this person did this, this person got her stardom in her 80s, then you see evidence of that and go, wait, wow, paradigm shift. Maybe I'm not too old, right? You start challenging that limiting thought, right? And when you do that, then you start opening up to the desires again. But so we are our own obstacle. And that's the good news, because then we can change it.
Exactly. Yeah. I always say, when you take responsibility for having created whatever it is that you don't like in your awareness right now, when you take responsibility for that, that's the good news. Because if I created what I don't want, then I can certainly create what I do want.
Well, and the greatest thing about it is that our consciousness is what's creating everything in our life. And what's our consciousness? It's the words that we say, it's the thoughts that we think, it's what we believe or perceive, right? It's our feelings, our emotions, and then it's the actions that we take. It's those 5 things. So in any situation, any circumstance, any relationship, anything that we're seeing with our senses or experiencing in our lives, if we can turn it back and go, okay, I can speak in lack about this, or I could speak in abundance about this. I could think thoughts that
Absolutely.
feel bad, or I could think thoughts that feel good. I can focus my mind on what I want instead of what I don't want, about how I want to feel instead of how I don't want to feel. And then understand that everything in this universe is everything is energy. Everything has a vibration. And that vibration is, we're the one receiving the energy, containing the energy, and sending out the energy that then will become our reality. If more people would understand that, we would
It's actually pretty simple.
It is.
It's really simple. I mean, I hear people so many times, with that word, that word, I can't afford it. I mean, it's so harmful. I mean, at least make a choice. At least realize, like, you know what, I'm allocating my money to other things because, I mean, we can afford pretty much anything, if we make up our mind to be able to afford it, we can. We have to get creative. I mean, look,
But you can't
it would
say you can't afford it though.
exactly, exactly. You cannot say that. What would you say to a person who says, you know, I can't afford a course, or I can't afford this book, or I can't afford whatever it is? What would you say to a person?
Well, first of all, I want to tell you that I have a gift here for everybody that's literally on this whole topic. It's watchyourwords.com. It's a free course. I pulled together 30 words and phrases that people say that don't even know that they're saying it, and what it's doing to them into their creations and what they want to do in their, have or be in their life, and then what to say instead. And one of those is, I can't afford. When you say I can't, and then whatever comes after that, you are literally closing down your energy field. You are focused fully in lack, and you have started a momentumous creation of something that must match something that shows lack. And so when you are saying, I can't afford, you are literally creating a world that no matter how much money you have or don't have, you're not going to be able to afford the things that you love. Just bottom line.
Yeah.
But when you catch yourself, and this is one of the first words and phrases I learned 25 years ago, because I heard myself say that. I still hear my mom and dad say that. And they've got plenty of money to last them another whatever. They're fine, but they've always worried. And she's always said, well, we can't afford that. we can't afford that. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense even at this stage of life to continue to say that. When you say I can't afford, it becomes your reality, no matter how much money you have or don't. But when you say, you know what, I liked what you said, right? This money is allocated for other things. That's a great way to say it. What I say in the video is, that's not a financial priority for me right now.
I like that too.
There's many light ways of saying it, right? There's many ways of turning it around. But when you say either way, it opens up the possibility. I actually had this happen with a client. I'm no kidding. One day got on a call with a client and she says, I'm just so upset. And I said, well, what are you so upset about? And she goes, well, my friend just offered me a trip to Maui, and, it's right on the beach, and it's like 5-star everything. They're going to have a caterer, so we don't have to worry about food or anything. But she said, I have to get there. And I said, well, what did you tell her? And she said, I told her I can't afford it. And I go, well, you got to change the language and call your friend back after the session and go, you know what? It's not a financial priority, but I'm open to the possibilities. And so she did exactly that. And I kid you not, within less than 24 hours, her friend calls her back and says, I've got it. And she said, you got what? She said, I have a ticket that I have needed to use. It's transferable, but it's not refundable. And so I need to literally, before it expires, do you want it? You can still come in Maui. Now you don't have to pay a thing. Her reality was, she was open to it.
Yes. That, and you're constantly, I mean, because I believe, we're always programming our subconscious mind to, and we're in control of what what we want the subconscious mind to do for us. So when we tell it, I can't afford, it's going to set that up. But if we say, how can I afford this? Or, if then now its job is to look for those opportunities. And even beyond that, it could be, even the super conscious or infinite intelligence is out there looking for those opportunities. So I love that. I love your watch your words. I definitely, that's a free course that people
Yes.
can go and get. Watchyourwords.com. You know what? I think years ago, when I was interviewing you in the past, I think I went there and I went through part of the course, and something about that sounds familiar. And I think that it's amazing. And I really, really love how you take the word that, is a no-no word, and turn it into, this is how you can create what you want and a life that you do want. Because if we start to focus on the words that are about what we do want, we're going to get what we do want instead.
Yes.
It's so simple, and it's a great habit.
During the lockdown, right? I remember my boys are home, my husband's home, everything's closed, right? Except for grocery stores, right? And so I remember coming up to my husband and I was like, I miss going on a date with you. And I went, wait, that's one of the words, I miss. If I'm missing something, I'm seeing that I'm coming from a place of lack. So I was like, okay. And I rephrased myself. I said, I really look forward to going on a date with you.
Ooh.
And he goes, let's go right now. They're doing their homework. We literally went outside. It was beautiful Arizona weather. We didn't take the dogs. It wasn't about the dog. We went and sat down on a park bench and literally chatted. And I go, you know what? I am so looking forward to going on a date, like a real date, and we go out when the restaurants open again. We had no idea when the restaurants were going to open. And he goes, yeah. And so we started thinking of all the amazing restaurants that we have in the Scottsdale, Phoenix area, where would we want to go? Right. So we're now creating and we're thinking about, what about Ocean 44? Yeah. That's the one. Okay. Well, do we want to go there alone? Because we haven't seen our friends. We want to go out with a couple friend. That'd be fun. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Now who do we want to go with? Right. It became like, which couple friend? And then for me, I was off thinking, what am I going to wear? What shoes am I going to wear? So it was a very creative, fun, expressive, energy was moving. And when the restaurants opened, we went to that very restaurant with that very couple. And it was like, oh my God, I've just dreamt of this moment. And, I've been creating this moment, and just that feeling of like, the manifestation, it's like amazing. That was in the middle of a lockdown. I mean,
it's amazing what you can manifest. And I mean, we manifested our dream home in the middle of the lockdown. And, it was an unfortunate situation for our landlord that had to kick us out of our rental that we were in. But it was like, it's the universe's way of saying it is time. And it's like, oh my God, a year later now, I'm glad that we took advantage of that. So yeah, and just one other fun thing to reiterate was, I went out shopping for, I needed a dress to wear for the seminar, and I was at the Fashion Square, and there's a lot of high-end places there. I wasn't like looking for something like super duper high-end. I just kind of wanted Macy's or something along that line. And so I saw something across the way, and I was like, ooh, that's a great one. But it was like at Prada or something like that, and I'm like, I caught myself almost saying that I can't afford it. And I'm like, no. The law of attraction hypnotist doesn't talk like that. What would I say instead? It's like, I'm, that's not in my budget right now. Like, that's not the amount I have budgeted for this dress. And, it's coming from a decision, because I made a conscious amount that I wanted to spend on it. And this is not in the budget that I have already pre-decided. So, you can fix those words when you hear yourself saying them, you can really easily fix those words.
Yeah. And even to take a step further, it's like when you tell yourself that, it's like, hey, next time I'll budget for that.
Yes. I like that.
Because it's like, that's, it's still a possibility. Just, I'm not going to get it today, but it's still, that's what prompted this whole entire Desire Factor book. When I first met my husband, we went on, and this is 15 years ago, we went on a trip with my mom and dad to Italy, where we went, it was an amazing trip. We went to like Como and Florence and, was it, Positano, and it was amazing. And we went to Venice also for it was like 2.5 days. And when we got there, I love high-end purses. I always have. And yet here I was like, oh my gosh, there's Prada and Dior and Gucci and Chanel. And I mean, it was like one after the other. And so my boyfriend at the time, now husband, he was freaking out because he's watching me go into all these stores. And I'm like, oh my God, these are amazing. I'm like, wow, this bag's $5,000. And he's going like, oh God. Right. And then we went into Valentino and I see this dress and I'm like, oh, that Valentino dress. It was like this gown. Right. So he was freaking out a little bit going, oh my God. I said to him, I go, someday, I just started my business too, full time. Someday I'm going to come back here and I'm going to get myself whatever I desire. And he was going, oh my God, freaking out. I can't afford you. And I looked at him and I go, you don't have to afford me. I'll afford myself, but I'm going to come back here someday and I'm going to get myself totally free to buy whatever. So several years ago, now fast forward, I took my business, did really well, is doing really well. Right. I took my mom and my dad, my 2 little boys, my husband on an amazing 5-star cruise to the Mediterranean. And one of the stops was Venice. And so we wanted to have our day where this was going to be my time to go to Venice and have that feeling of total freedom to get whatever I wanted. And there was tons of things that I saw, different prices. And I walked into Dolce & Gabbana and I saw the cutest little handbag. And I'm like, that's the one. Right. So I'm having this amazing day. We had pasta lunch and had a little vino with it and, got back on the ship. It was amazing. And I'm unwrapping this Dolce & Gabbana bag. And I hear a voice say, you're so materialistic.
Oh no. Oh no.
Like, why? I mean, because I made a decision all those years ago that someday I was going to come back. This purse was my desire factor back then.
Yeah.
And this is a symbol of success of who I became in the process because I grinded it and I created an amazing business that is helping people. That is of service, where people's lives are changing. I mean, this is a celebration. Why is that bad? And that voice was my sister, who always had some kind of opinion, because I was always like, at Easter, for example, we get all dressed up and go to church. I do the hat and the gloves and the little purse and the dress. I mean, I'm talking like I'd like to get dressed up. So that judgment came from her.
Yeah.
And how many times do we have those voices in the back of our head that tell us, well, that's stupid, or you're stupid, or, you're so wrong, or why do you want money? That's wrong to want money. Like, or whatever the thought is telling us that we're wrong or bad for desiring anything, when a desire literally creates who we become. Because what if I would have said all those years ago, 15 years ago, yeah, you're right. I can't afford you can't afford me. I can't afford me. I can't afford this.
I mean, if there wasn't for desire, nothing would exist.
Exactly.
Nothing.
No thing. Yes. No thing.
You wouldn't exist.
Place. None of us, the planets wouldn't exist.
It's a good thing.
It is a good thing. And, I was doing a speaking engagement the other day, and I was saying how, there's some different philosophies throughout different religions that get misinterpreted. And I said, for example, even the Buddhists say that desires are the root of suffering, right? Mm-hmm. That's what people think, that you shouldn't desire. And a woman that came up to me after, she goes, I have to say this. She goes, I am a Buddhist. I'm almost trained to be a Buddhist monk. And she said, in the Buddhist teachings, it's not that desires are the root of all suffering. It's attachment to desires. And I said, but take it a step further. Be attached to the desire in the sense of your vision is set on it. You're connected with it, that as if it's already in your life, you're not separated from it. So there is, of course, an attachment, but there's not a negative, clingy, have to have it impatience that comes from lack. It's not attachments that's bad. It's the attachment and lack that's bad.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting too, because to me, like when they say money is the root of all evils, and it's, to me, it's actually the lack of money, I think, is the root of all evils. When it really comes down to it, because I mean, it's the feeling of that desperation that people go into that makes them do bad things. If they feel abundant, they're not out there doing bad things, they're out helping people.
That's why the first principle is the principle of alignment. If
Yes.
someone is out doing bad things, or they're feeling desperate, or they're in fear, they're not in alignment. Got to get in alignment with those desires.
And that is a good time to circle back and talk about what are the 7 steps that we need to take in order to get into alignment.
Perfect. And so here's what I just want to say about that before I go into all of them. What amazes me about the information that came through from the council is that we might hear about or know about alignment, right? But they opened it up and expanded it to help us go deeper in what that means. So there's the principle of alignment, and then you have even the principle of focus. Again, it's like they stretched it out and looked at it in very different ways to help us understand how powerful we are as human beings and where our focus needs to be, because that will always be what we create. And then the third is joyful expectancy. Once you're aligned with your desires, you're like, I'm all in. I'm totally focused on the having of it. I'm totally focused on the visualizations. I see myself doing it, being it, having it, whatever it may be. Now there's a gap between having it in the mind and then having it in your hands, right? And so there's a gap that we need to be in a place of joyful expectation, where we're expecting the good to come. We're expecting the right people to come. And it's keeping that gap full of that joy, moving in that joy. And that leads then to the next step, which is the having of it. When you're expecting it, then the next is like, you're accepting it, you're having it. And when you have it, you're not in lack of it. Now you're a vibrational match to it. So huge. But then taking it even a step further, and that's the principle of loving. Because if you're having something and then you feel yourself loving having it, because love is the highest vibration in the universe, is a master ray vibration, manifestation ray, that literally just candy coats everything that you do. It's like an M&M, right? It just candy coats the M&M. Like it just makes everything just so much more higher and more vibrant and more attractive. And then at that point, you surrender anything that comes up. Right? The principle of surrender is, if the mind, and it will, because our minds are trained to do this, it wants to know the details. It wants to know the who, the where, the why, the how, and it's going to scour and look for all the things that could be possibly detrimental or things that you need to worry about. And when you could just say to the mind, got you, thank you, duly noted, I'm going to stay in this place of just total surrender. I'm surrendering that fear, that thought, that worry, that perspective, that action. I'm surrendering that word. I'm surrendering all of this over to my divine life partner that has bird's eye view. This is where I get to sit back and just receive my orders. Because the 7th principle is then the principle of action. We are the action takers. We are the physical to the non-physical. As you are co-creating with non-physical, and you've surrendered over everything that could be possibly any type of resistance at all, surrender all that over. Now you're an open vessel to feel the having once again, to feel the having of it. And then when that happens and you're loving it, that's when inspiration comes through. That's when you get the idea. That's when the desire pops through, or the person calls, or, you get a text, or, something. That's when the manifestation just pops through. And that's when we need to take action. It might not be the end all be all result, but if you know that you got to call someone, or that you have to write an email, or you have to go check out a book, or you have to go join a course, or whatever it may be, right? You're doing it from a place of the fullness of complete faith and complete alignment. You're not holding anything back. You're going into that relationship fully hearted. You're going into that business meeting completely in your presence and in the energy of success. You're doing all of it from the fullness of who you are. And then it's rinse and repeat.
That is beautiful. I love those 7 steps. Let me see if I didn't write them down, but I feel like I integrated them pretty quickly. So we get into alignment, we focus, what was the third one? The third one was joyful. Yeah. Joyful expectancy. Then we get into the having, we allow ourselves to have it. Then we get into the surrender,
the field of love.
Yes, you have to love it. Yeah, love. Then you surrender. Then you take action. You take inspired action, not forced action, but inspired action. And then you just, it's a one cycle. I mean, once you've taken action on that, maybe a small action, or maybe a big action, but the action is going to ultimately lead you toward your desire. And then you're just back to being in alignment with, whatever else you're manifesting. Yeah. I love it. That's amazing process, an amazing system. And it's a surefire way to manifest.
It is. It's nice to know all the puzzle pieces go in the order that they're supposed to. And it's like, it's so much easier when you have that clarity. That's what I just love about it. It's like, oh, thank you. I had to find, this is a puzzle piece. I'll work with this for a couple of years. Right. And then you find, I got this puzzle piece. So it's nice to have it all just there. And that's what I appreciate about it. But one thing I wanted to say is we talked about 3 obstacles. We are the first obstacle. Mm-hmm. The second obstacle is other people. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So you could be excited about a desire and someone else could be that voice going, are you sure you want to do that? That could be dangerous. You're too old, why? Right. Or you're too young, or whatever it could be. I remember when I left my corporate job, I had a title as sales training manager at a biotech company, making pretty good money, right? Mm-hmm. A corner office, all that. And when I had to tell my mom, I resigned and I'm starting my own coaching business on law of attraction on the internet. She still to this day doesn't understand law of attraction, still doesn't understand why someone would ever hire a coach, and still doesn't understand how I could run a business on the internet. So for her, she was in just complete fear mode, right? And so I knew that every time I would talk to her, she would be like, how's your business? It was like this, how's it going? I could just feel it on the phone. So I would have to center myself in my why I'm doing this and in my connection to my abundance. And, sometimes I would get a little knocked off and her fear became my fear. And then I would have to release that fear. But, other people, because they just are not at the same creation level or awareness level or consciousness level that you were at when you received the idea, for someone else, it's illogical. I mean, absolutely. to look at me in my life and go, you're leaving what you've been working towards your whole entire corporate career in sales and marketing. You're leaving that to go do something else that's not guaranteed, right? On the internet, which at that point, 15 years ago, not a lot of people knew and understood the internet. Right. It definitely wasn't what it is now. It was just literally like, I was one of the first people that did a group coaching program on the internet 15 years ago, so it's like, it's totally different now.
Yes, absolutely.
And the information,
and especially after this last year, a lot of other people, like, they get it now. They've caught up to what you and I have been doing for decades. And, now people get like, oh, you can make money on the internet. They had to get shoved into literally a little corner in their house to figure that out. But
at least they did. Yeah. Yeah. It's
how do you get those people like to leave you alone, to like, without, like, how do you prevent those people from limiting your desires without threatening, the relationship between them? Like, how do you set those boundaries?
Well, it is setting boundaries. And it is like when my mom would be all scared or fearful of something, when I could hear it in her voice, I would just say to her, I'm doing really well. I'm very happy. Right. I know that my mom ultimately just wants me to be happy.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, it was like, I just reassured her because it was like, it's okay. I'm doing great. All is well. Things are, I've got plenty of clients. Oh, okay. You're doing okay. You sure? Yes, I'm doing fine. I'm doing great. I'm very happy. It was like a little kid that needed reassurance, right? I remember when I had my baby and I would, he was always with me, except for when I would go to the gym for an hour and I bring him in the gym daycare and I'd tell him 10 times, mommy always comes back, mommy always comes back. It's just reassuring. And when someone is emotional and they've got a lot of worry and a lot of fear, their logic doesn't kick in. I mean, my mom is going through this right now. My husband and I next week are going to go with a group to go hike the Grand Canyon. And I did not tell my mother this yet. So he told her, and all of a sudden it became the questioning, are you going to go alone? How many people are going to go? And that's really dangerous. You guys aren't hikers. How are you going to do? I can hear him on the phone, like a drill sergeant, just answering the questions because she's so worried. Right. And so I'm like, great. Now for the next week, I'm going to have to talk to her. I'm going to have to literally just go, it's all good. It's going to be safe. Right. It's like, what is she worried about? She's worried that I'm going to come back alive. Right.
Yeah.
It's totally safe. It's an easy trail. We're walking Grand Canyon, that's what we're telling ourselves. We're going for a long walk at the Grand Canyon. So it's understanding that it's the energy that's intensified that needs to be addressed, or else the intensified energy is all you feel and is all that's in the room. So having your own energy come from the place of all is well, that, because if you're panicking and they're panicking, now you're panicking each other, right? It's like you're elevating. It's like having one child versus two, and they come together. It's like almost like four. That's what happens. And so when you can master your own energy and someone else is freaking out or worried or fearful around you, then you can neutralize that energy. There's so many ways to do that, but
so you do it to yourself first. You get yourself into alignment with the state that you want to be in. And then you transfer that, ultimately that energy to the person.
Yeah. You can't give what you don't have. Right. So you got to take care of yourself first, and then it's like filling up with the energy of compassion. You can't give anybody else compassion if you're not feeling compassion for how your involvement is in that particular situation. Can't give out what you don't have. So you feel compassion and then.
Exactly. It kind of reminds me a little bit, like occasionally I'll share a new idea. And I just like to have people, my husband, like to bounce ideas off of occasionally. And I had to redefine what I mean by bouncing ideas off. It's like, no, this isn't like an opportunity for you to reject that idea. Like this isn't a yes or no question. This is like, that sounds like an amazing idea. And so I literally had to teach him. It's like, if I come to you with an idea, it's in a very vulnerable incubation phase where I'm just talking about it. I'm thinking about it. I'm not going to do anything that's going to jeopardize our livelihood or anything like that. I'm a pretty smart woman, but I'm just excited about it and I just want to share it with you. And so you have to be very clear and specific with people when you're talking to them about what you want to get back from them, because like, no, I'm not really looking. I say I'm looking for feedback. That's just the way I'm posing it, but I'm really not looking for feedback.
Yeah. I had to have that same conversation with my husband, because I would come to him all excited about something. And then he would talk about all the reasons why it didn't work or why we shouldn't do it. And I was like, so I'm like, can you just let me have my excitement? If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But just let me go, I have this idea. You go, oh, okay, that sounds great. Instead of telling me all the reasons why it won't work or I can't have it. Because that just doesn't feel good. So now he'll go, are you looking for feedback? And I'm like, no. And he's like, okay, sounds like a great idea.
We're on the same page about that. That's great. I love it. So
you gotta let the creative juices flow, right? And if they're just being stopped all the time, it's like, that's not fun.
Yeah, I'm looking for a cheerleader. That's all. It's like just rah rah. It's like you can do it. I can see that. And then look, I'll change my mind probably a half a dozen times about this. But anyway,
yeah.
All that to say, I think that this has been a fabulous opportunity for people to really get to know you a lot more and know about this process that they can learn a lot more about in reading your book, The Desire Factor. And so I want you guys to do two things. Number one, I want you to go to Amazon and get yourself a copy of this amazing book, The Desire Factor. And I know that if you take these steps, because, I'm a law of attraction hypnotist myself too. And so I know that this stuff works. And so all you got to do is just apply the steps that Christy has laid out here for you. And this is going to help you manifest your dreams. The second thing I want you to do is go to watchyourwords.com. It's watchyourwords.com and sign up for that 30-day course. And that alone is going to change your life. It's a free course. It's going to change your life because your words are where all of the manifestation starts. And if you're telling yourself things that, that you don't want to happen, if you're worried, if you're coming from fear, coming from scarcity, coming from lack, all that's going to do is just create more of that. So go get informed. You never know. You might think you have it all figured out. But there are words you're going to catch that you've been saying that you are going to be so surprised, like, wow, I have been saying this my whole life, and this is why I haven't been able to create my dreams. It could be just one word. So I would highly, highly recommend going and checking out that course. And also, Christy has a new podcast that I'd like you to tune into. I did say two things, but I'm going to say it's actually three. Go to look up the Desire Factor podcast. I'm going to have the link and everything to that in our show notes. So make sure that you go over to victoriamgallagher.com podcast and check out all these links that are going to be in the show notes. But or go to Apple Podcasts or Google or wherever you want to listen to your podcast and check her out. Christy's just an amazing person. She's got, she's dialed in to this whole law of attraction thing, and it's going to help you to manifest the life of your dreams. So thank you so much for being a guest on the Power of Your Mind podcast, Christy. It's been a pleasure. And we'll be here for you next year or whenever you write
next book,
your next book, and just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing amazing.
Thank you, sweetie. You too. Thank you so much for all you do and for having me on.
Thank you.